To make my spiral stairs, I've got a piece of cardboard which is about 2 millimeters thick, and I always find it so much easier when you're painting to paint before you assemble it or make it, because they're very, very finicky to paint. So I'm using Mars Black, medium yellow and deep red, and I'm painting both sides of the cardboard at about a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter square, because I want some other pieces that are going to be brown. I've just put my red, yellow and black onto the paper, and then all we do is just mix them all together, and it'll give you quite a nice color, brownish. If it's too dark, all you have to do is add a bit more yellow. So for me, that actually looks really, really nice. But I just put a wee bit more yellow in just so that I can show you what it does. As you can see, it highlights it and makes it quite a lot lighter. And then, as I said, I'm going to be painting both sides of my piece of cardboard. I've painted both sides of my cardboard, and now I just peg it and hang it up to dry. I've got a piece of brown, call it card sheet. It's not very, very thick, it's quite flexible, and I'm not particularly fussy. To me, the color is quite nice as the contrast, so I'm going to be leaving my piece of cardboard brown. And then I'm going to be cutting strips of 1/2 centimeter and then one strip of 2 centimeters, but I'm going to be cutting them on the diagonal so that they can wrap around my staircase. So this is the size of a normal skewer, so I'm actually going to be using the one that's they call the jumbo skewers. So in diameter there's, you can see quite a difference in the size. And I'm just going to be painting this stick with the same paint that I painted the other piece. I'm painting just a little bit more because it's got to be cut down, and then just put that aside to dry. I want my staircase to look a bit rustic, so I've just gone into the garden and picked up some sticks, and I'm going to be cutting little pieces at 5 centimeters each, and I'm going to cut to 12 pieces. And then on some of the thicker ones, I'm just cutting them at 4 centimeters each so that I can make some wood for the fireplace. I'm just using my little angle cutters to cut them. When you're working with rustic, it makes it a lot more difficult to line them up to get them straight, so all of them are going to be at slightly different angles, which is what I'm going for. So you see the slightly difference in their shapes. To make these stairs, I'm going to be giving you the measurements that I'm working on, but you're going to have to modify them according to the height and width of what you would like your stairs to be. So I'm going with a radius of 5 centimeters, and we're just going to draw a circle of that onto our piece of paper, our cardboard that we've just painted. So we're doing an extra 2 circles. So we've got one, we're going in and making it 2 centimeters, and then just draw a 2 centimeter circle. That particular circle is where we're going to be drilling our holes into. And then the final circle that we've got for the middle, we're going at 1 centimeter, and then just do that as well. So now you're going to be dividing your circle into 12 portions. Got a protractor. This will help you out to get the exact proportions. So when we put it into the middle like that, you want to go, and each little segment is at 30 degrees. Or if you're not too fussed about it, you can just divide it as if you were cutting a cake. I've got a special kind of protractor which I've poked it into the center hole, and now we're just going to mark at 30 degrees. So I've marked it at 30, 60, 90 120, 150, and then 180 and 2. So I've got the 6, and now I'm just going to turn my protractor around the other side and mark the other side exactly the same way. Now that we've got it all marked, we can just draw the lines to connect them. For myself personally, I find it easier to do the holes in the solid piece like this. So now in between the middle, so you're looking for the center part, depending on how big your sticks are or whatever it is that you're using, you're going to be putting a hole there. And on this one, on the 4 centimeter line, you're going to be drilling for the size of your pipe that we painted. So I'm using that skewer. So that's where I'm going to be drilling the holes or poking the holes through. So we're just going to do that now. I'm just using one of my drill bits to do the holes. So for me it's a lot easier, so I'm using a size 3.5 drill bit. That's because I'm just going into cardboard, so we're just going to do that. If you're working in wood, you might want to use your little drills, but I'm just using one of my big normal drills from my impact driver, and we're just doing all the holes around there. So that's the size stick that I'm using, which is the same size as my drill bit. Now these are all the small sticks that I'm going to be using as my balustrades. So if you're using one that they're all are the same thickness, then all we're going to be doing is just drilling the hole there. But because mine are all slightly different sizes, I have to use different size drill bits. Well, you can either do this now or you can do it after you put it all together. While it's flat on the floor, it's much easier to work with, because when they're already put together and you're trying to put your balustrades on, it's a little bit difficult getting the holes through. So we're just going to get all the little holes drilled in there now. Just using the 3.5 drill bit, and then I'll change them afterwards. So now you want to go in at least 2 millimeters so you're not poking through on the other side. So I'm just drilling my little holes there, and then I'll widen them as I need to go. So then just do all the holes like that. So now we're going to cut our segments out. For myself personally, I find it easier to cut them while they all attach to the big circle. However, you can cut the circle out and then try and cut your little wedges out like that. But I'm going to be doing it by cutting them out while they're still all attached to the cardboard. And we're just cutting straight through. And then just cut all of them out like that. I've cut through all my wedges, and now they're still attached, but it's so much easier that way, and then they're not sliding all over. And now we get to cut the circle out. So we're cutting each wedge out, and we're cutting along the 1 centimeter diameter. We're cutting that small little piece off. So you can do it with a empty cutter, or you can take a small pair of scissors. I find when I'm working with the cardboard, to take that small little piece off, it's easier to just cut it off with a pair of scissors. And then just cut all of them out. I've got one of these thin plastic straws, and I've painted it the same colour as the stairs. And this one, the stick slides in quite nicely. So now the distance that I'm going for, the distance between my steps, I'm going to be going at 1.5 centimeters. As I said, these are the measurements that I'm going for. They might be different for you, but this is just to give you an idea of what I'm doing. So I'm measuring, I'm going to be using my straw as my spacers. So I'm measuring 1.5 and cutting 12 little pieces at 1.5 centimeters. On my ruler, there's a tiny little bit distance over there, which is 1/2 centimetre. So all I'm doing is taking my straw, putting it on the 1 centimetre mark, and then just cutting my little spaces off like that. To put the steps together, obviously this side has got the pointy piece, so I'm starting by putting one of the steps going up. So I want the smooth side on that side. So we've got the first one that's going on, and then I'm putting a spacer in between it. So pushing that all the way to the top. And then another one. And my straws are just a little bit thicker than the stick, so the spaces are quite nice. Now when you are making your stairs, you have to line them up so that when you look from the top that you don't have a gap, and just make sure that you're putting all your little stairs in the same direction. So we've got one, that's 2 on, and now we're going to put the spacer in. Obviously the cardboard is a lot thinner than what wood would be, so it's not going to be as nice looking. And just load all your steps on. Because my little decoration is not very big, I've only got 15 centimetres from the floor to the top, so that's what the little stairs are looking like. So you can see they're nice and spiraled. So I'm only using 3, 6, 8 of my 12 steps. And now I'm going to be taking... Now the reason why I've put spacers in is it saves me from having to glue each little piece in place, because they're not going to go anywhere because they're quite tight on the step. And now we're just going to I'm putting a border around the edge of the steps, just going around like that. So we're going to be using that piece of cardboard. To make my handrail, I've got this EVA foam, which is a 4mm EVA foam. And because I wanted to have angle on it, I'm cutting it at a 45 degree. But also because this is a bit for a witch's things, I'm trying to get it so that it's a bit uneven. So to cut the 45 degree angle, if you wanted to slope inward, you that way. But I wanted going outwards, so I've turned the scissors out that way. And I'm cutting the top part of it at 1/2 centimetre because my sticks are that in diameter. So then just cut that strip, and then I'm going to paint it the same colour as we painted all the other pieces. Because my EVA foam is quite thick, it's making my balustrades a little bit too tall. So I'm going to be cutting 1 centimetre off all my little sticks. I put all my little balustrades on, and now I've cut those little pieces of cardboard which are 1/2 centimetre thick, and we're going to just wrap them around the railing like that. When you start gluing them on, start at a 45 degree angle so that it tapers all the way up. And a little tip is to just curl so it's easier to glue it. Now you can use whatever kind of glue that you would like to use. For this particular one, I'm just using hot glue. I've got my balustrade at the top glued on, and now I'm taking the thicker piece that we cut and I'm gluing that on the bottom. Once again, started at a 45 degree angle like that, and then just rotated all the way up. I've also put my staircase in and my columns. I'm starting to work on my upstairs. So I've taken my little silicone mould that I made like that and just filled it with glue to make a little archway, and I've just taken some skewers and straws to thicken it like that. And I'm going to be painting it black, and then it's going to be going just over my stairwell like that. To do my stairwell, I've taken out my column so I can get to the back, and I've just made that little palm tree and the pot. The pot is out of cardboard and the palm trees is just out of some masking tape. And now I'm going to be placing my little archways and all the balustrades that are going to go around it. I've got my little stairwell completed, and to finish it off I've just taken some beautiful beads and put some little plants in them. I'm going to put them on each side, like that. So that's what it looks like with its own little lights on. Thank you so much for watching.